Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's weather outlook for the southern region, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Let's begin by taking a look at recent precipitation. The map on the left there shows the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation through early in the morning on the 18th. So this was yesterday. And when we kind of take a look at this, we just see that big low pressure system racing through the country last week. Now, where this caused problems with flooding would have been right here where we already had problems with flooding along the lower and mid-Mississippi River Valley. And then I'm sure you've heard of all of the incredible flooding we've had on the north central plains. Now, why we bring that up is if we just look over the last 30 days, that's the map that's over here on the right. These are two regions that have been extremely wet. While a lot of the south, especially as you get closer to the Gulf, has been dry, these two regions plus all the snowpack still sitting in the northern plains means that this water has to get down through our major waterways, which means primarily the Mississippi River. So we're going to be seeing flooding here along the Mississippi River for quite some time. Now, at the end of this video, we're going to come back to talking more about the upcoming precipitation. But what I want to do next is I want to see what we're doing in terms of temperatures. Right now we've got frost and freeze advisories down here in parts of northern Alabama, northern Georgia, parts of southern Tennessee, as well as getting up toward the Appalachian Mountain side of South Carolina there. So we got some cooler air that's in place, and we can see these temperatures early in the morning on the 19th hovering right around freezing in this area, and then at higher elevation over here in South Carolina, they're getting closer to those numbers as well. So we've got some chilly air that's in place, but we're going to be watching our temperatures evolve quite rapidly over the coming days and weeks here across the south. And one of the maps we're going to watch carefully is this one. It's from the National Phenology Network, and this is a really interesting map because they combine a lot of different data sources, including observations, but also stuff from satellite that kind of give us an idea on something called the spring leaf index. Basically, this is how green things look compared to average, and they can tell us how we compare to normal. So when you get over into these colors, we're talking about spring arriving early, and in these colors, spring arriving late. We can see that overall, things are progressing a little bit ahead of normal in terms of temperatures across much of the south, thanks to a flow pattern in February that did this with a trough out west. Now, that same flow pattern brought a lot of rain to this area while keeping this region in through here relatively dry, and that's what we see on the northern edge of where we can kind of measure our spring leaf index. Things are still behind average here in parts of Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, that region in through there. So let's keep that picture in mind as we progress throughout spring. We'll keep you updated on what that map looks like. Now, the current flow in the atmosphere is featuring a huge ridge out west. So the flow is kind of split. It's doing something like this, okay? I say that it's split, but technically it's not blocked, and that's because the Pacific jet stream, which is this feature over here, is very strong at this point. And because of that, it's going to undercut this ridge, which is bringing a lot of warmth to the Pacific Northwest, but we're going to undercut this ridge with this stronger subtropical branch, and that's going to keep things quite interesting across the south. Now, we're dealing with this little shortwave right here. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but overall, we're going to be seeing a pretty active pattern moving forward. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But let's talk about what this means in terms of temperatures, because if the ridge is tucked away out west, we're going to end up getting troughs that kind of circle around it. We've been talking about this in our forecast videos now for about a week, just discussing how this flow pattern features, a dominant feature sitting right here, but the flow kind of unblocked around it just like this. We need to know what that means in terms of our weather systems here for the southern region. So let's kind of play this forward. As we watch, the features we're going to pay close attention to here, let's just kind of step this back. We overall have a trough that's kind of hanging out here in the Gulf of Mexico. This is going to keep parts of southern Florida wet, but really not too wet across much of the rest of the southern region. We're going to be watching by the time we get into Wednesday and Thursday. This is where things get interesting for the Carolinas. By Thursday, see this trough that kind of swings through here? Yes, this keeps temperatures a little bit cool, but it's going to excite a low pressure system that kind of races here up the Carolina coast and eventually becomes what looks like a nor'easter for the northeastern part of the United States. But warmth will build in behind this. See the little ridge coming in there? This is by the 24th, 25th. But you see this wave right in through here in the center part of the country? Again, that just snuck around this bigger ridge feature sitting over western Canada. And this one's probably going to excite a pretty decent low pressure system somewhere in the central plains, which will start off in Texas and Oklahoma and then work its way toward the southeast. Now, up until the point that this system comes through, much of parts of South Carolina, Georgia, northern Florida, Alabama, Mississippi are going to be relatively dry as those previous two systems hang out to the north. But do you see how the trough goes through, then a ridge follows it, another trough comes through, and the ridges build back in? That is going to really kind of show us what our temperatures are going to look like. It's going to be pretty much a roller coaster ride. This is very typical of spring. So if you see some cooler weather moving in, what I want you to notice here is that the temperatures are not getting down into the bitterly cold, much farther below average temperatures. But still, it's a ride, okay? So we start off here. This is going to be in the evening on Tuesday. So this was the cooler air, on Monday. This is the cooler air that set us up for those colder temperatures early in the morning on Monday. As I click play, though, we see that the cooler weather kind of hangs around through the day on Tuesday, just 5 to 10 degrees cooler than average. But then we get into Wednesday and it's kind of there. But watch this. As I get us past Wednesday into Thursday, that system goes cranking up the East Coast. So we got this cooler weather across much of the southern region through the week. But watch what happens once I get us out toward the weekend. This is where things start to rebound. See the warmth spreading here into the central plains, whereas over here across the southeast we kind of hang on to our cooler bias. Now, it's cooler than average, but it's not going to be bitterly cold. But watch the warm-up that happens early next week. You see, that warm-up that's happening here is out ahead of this next low pressure system that slides through across the southeast. But just as we normally see, once one of those happens, the cooler weather comes in behind it, but then we go back into a warmer pattern again. So this is just going to be an up, down, up, down, up, down kind of temperature forecast as we progress forward. But overall, I'd say over the next 10 days or so, if there's a place that favors cooler than average weather, it'll be the southeast, whereas over in Texas, Oklahoma, on the western side of the Mississippi, a little bit more of a wild ride in terms of temperatures. Okay, in terms of precipitation, you're going to see that overall through the next 10 days, the models, when we put it all together, this is looking again at the European ensemble, wants to keep this region drier than average. But we need to take a closer look at precipitation to understand why that is, okay? So let's get right into this. This is starting us off early in the morning on Tuesday. This is the operational run from the European model. Throughout much of the day on Tuesday, southern Florida is looking to have a wet bias. We have just widely scattered showers and storms. But as we progress forward, let's just see the next system that shows up here. Okay, so let me step you back. This is Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. Now you can see across the central plains there's a weak low pressure system swimming through Illinois. It will drag its cold front through parts of Oklahoma and Texas, bringing in some widely scattered showers. Nothing severe at this point. Meanwhile, if you get over to the Carolinas, maybe some coastal rain, but not too much. As we get into Wednesday, you can see that front spreading through Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and eventually spreading into Mississippi, northern Alabama, northern Georgia. But it's the northern regions of those states that have the best chance at getting some precipitation. And again, it's not very heavy. Meanwhile, remember how I showed you that little shortwave kind of racing up through the Carolinas, heading on up to the north and east? Well, you can see it right in through here, bringing in that the rain chances there, mainly a coastal feature there for the Carolinas. But as you progress forward, look, that becomes a big nor'easter up the east coast. But overall, if you were in the southern region of, the coastal region of our southern region, way down here, this is going to be a relatively drier week that's coming up. But I told you, we got to watch out for what's happening after the weekend. So let's get into Saturday here. We can see widely scattered showers out ahead of our next system. Why is that? Dominant area of higher atmospheric pressure here. We just bring the flow just like that. Plenty of moisture comes up to support the development of showers and thunderstorms here in the central plains. That's going to be adding to the flood problems we're already having there. But as we progress forward, watch this next system show up here. So this is now Sunday, and here it is. Now as that one goes through, it will bring rain all the way down to the coast. And so that system, when we add it all up, gives us a total accumulated precipitation map through the next week like this. Remember, this region misses out a lot of it. We have the system that starts off in the Carolinas and runs up here. That'll be by Thursday. And then we're watching this weak system sneak through, bringing in widely scattered rain for this area throughout the middle part of this week. But it won't be until that system comes through on the 25th that we get rain all the way down here to the Gulf Coast. Remember, that was an area that had been dry leading up to this part of the this part of the year. So that's kind of our detailed outlook here, getting us through the next week and possibly beyond. In my update that'll come out tomorrow on my.nutrienagsolutions.com, I'll talk about the longer range forecast. But I just want to tell you, the latest European weeklies show up with a forecast that looks something more like this. So that would be the flow of the jet stream, keeping some cooler weather tucked away where we have the high snowpack in the mountains, a very active subtropical jet stream. So while overall we see warmth here across the southeast, we expect to see quite a lot of transition and the potential for wetter than average conditions in the regions that I just kind of scribbled over the top there. So it could be a very active pattern as we move into April, especially by the time we get to mid-April. But we'll talk a lot about that in the video tomorrow. With that, I'm going to wrap up this forecast video. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions hope you look forward to our next Southern Region forecast video that'll come out on Friday morning. In the meantime, I hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.